Hello everyone, Paul de Klerk coming to you from Auckland in New Zealand, and today I'm chatting to Carl Pheasant, who works for Generate, the Kiwisaver scheme here in New Zealand. Hi there Carl, thanks for being with me.
Thanks for having me along.
Yeah, all good. So where are you from?
I'm from Auckland, born and bred.
Yeah.
Got a wife and 2 kids, and just loving being in Auckland.
Yeah, well thanks for being with me today, because Kiwisaver is a very big topic for a lot of us South Africans. So what does Generate do, the people you work for?
Well, we're a New Zealand-owned Kiwisaver provider. We're more of a boutique specialist, so we're not one of the big Aussie banks.
Right.
And we specialise in Kiwisaver, so that means that's all we do.
Okay, so that's what you do. So what is Kiwisaver exactly?
So Kiwisaver it was introduced by the government almost 12 years ago now. And it was really put in place to encourage New Zealanders to save more for their retirement.
Right.
So we have a ageing population in New Zealand, like a lot of other countries around the world.
Yes.
And historically, New Zealanders have not been good at all about saving for retirement. So we do have a pension scheme in New Zealand called Super, which is guaranteed, but it's not a lot of money.
Right.
So if you're a single person in New Zealand at the moment, on Super, you're receiving about $400 a week after tax in New Zealand, and that's really not enough money to have an enjoyable retirement.
No, it's not. And so, okay, so the New Zealand government started this as a means to encourage us to save money and to plan for retirement. Now, we South Africans culturally, we very pro saving for retirement. It's something that's on our minds a lot. So I have a lot of clients that are uprooting themselves from their home country, and they had a retirement annuity in South Africa that they were throwing money into. So the Kiwisaver is something similar. But the retirement annuity in South Africa, you're basically the only ones putting in the money to help it grow. Is that the case with Kiwisaver?
No. Kiwisaver has got some great additional benefits.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that make it very special. So one is that employers contribute as well. So in New Zealand, when you sign up for Kiwisaver, you typically decide your own contribution rate, and it comes out of your salary. So at the moment, you can choose between 3, 4 and 8% of your salary, and there's a couple more options coming up shortly.
Yes.
And your employer contributes 3%. So immediately, you're getting a bit of extra money from your employer. Now, the other wonderful benefit is something called a member tax credit. It's probably the worst name in the world because it's got nothing to do with taxes. Some people call it a government bonus.
Right.
So what it is so the government wants to encourage people into Kiwisaver and contributing. So what they say is, as long as you're in Kiwisaver and you're eligible, and by being eligible, you've got to be between 18 and 65, we will match you 50 cents to the dollar up to a maximum of $521 a year.
Right.
So what that looks like in practice is for someone who's on quite a low salary of 35,000 plus, that means they'll naturally contribute enough themselves to get that full member tax credit.
It's free money.
It's free money.
Yeah, so it's wonderful. So just from that point of view, I remember back in the day when they first started, you would get a $1,000 kickstart from the government. Unfortunately, that's no more. I've been here 12 years and I signed up quickly when I thought, $1,000, free money, sign me up. You know, I wanted that. So, but still, they're giving their contributions from the government every year, and so is your employer, and so are you.
Yep.
3 people are throwing money into this pot for your retirement, right?
Correct.
It's fantastic. Now, you're not limited at 3, 4, or 8%, right? You can put in as much as you want, but the minimum is 3.
Correct, and that's a salary contribution. So there's absolutely nothing stopping you putting in more money involuntarily.
Right, which is always a good idea, right? The more you put in, the better you will be later on.
Correct.
Right? So, all right, so what happens to this money then? And once you contributed it to this Kiwisaver provider, Generate, what happens to the money? Does it just sit there like a bank account earning interest?
No. So the great thing is that you've got fund choice. So there's different kinds of investment funds. They range from defensive through to aggressive. So really the key thing you can do as a Kiwisaver is get some help with what would be an appropriate fund. And that's usually talking to an advisor like yourself. So The great thing, so to give you some stats, there's about just over 3 million people in Kiwisaver at the moment, and over 30% of them are in growth funds.
Right.
So that's quite low, and that's because a lot of people have gone into Kiwisaver without talking to an advisor.
Right.
Now, the idea behind a growth fund is that it's called growth because your money will grow more. And the way your money grows is that your money is invested into shares.
So it's getting invested.
Correct.
It's not just sitting there.
Correct.
All right.
It's not a savings account, it's an investment fund.
Yeah.
And the idea is that if you invest into a wide variety of different companies, there's true diversification, your money will grow over time. It might be through dividends, might be through share prices growing.
Exactly.
And all the studies show that shares outperform conservative assets over time.
It's actually even outperformed property in the last 10 years, if you really drill down the numbers.
Correct.
All right. But this is why I've always been confused as to why it's called Kiwisaver, because it's got nothing to do with savings, right? And I've always said to my clients, if you're approaching Kiwisaver with a saver's mindset of putting money in the bank, then you're in for a world of pain. All right. It doesn't lend itself to very good decision making. So in the last 10 years, the stock market has been just increasing with a massive bull market. So nobody's really experienced a big downturn yet. And so we need to be mindful of these sorts of things, right? It's not a saving scheme, it's an investment scheme, really.
Yep.
So the ones that you're choosing, the people that you choose to invest that money for you is a very key decision.
Correct. And as an investment tool, Kiwisaver is more on the safer side.
Right.
And the reason behind that is the kind of companies that are invested in.
Right.
So we're talking more blue chip shares, companies that everyone's heard of. There's nothing inherently risky with the kinds of investments. However, there is a bit more risk the more shares you buy compared to how much, say, bonds
Of course.
you're invested in.
Of course. Well, one day there will be a crash in the stock market. I mean, it always is. It works in cycles. You know,
Correct.
I just want to always make sure that I have a nice amount of cash to be able to buy after it does crash. And think of it like raining gold. You know, after a stock market crash, everyone panics, but it's raining gold. You don't want a thimble out there to try to catch the gold. You want a bucket,
Yeah.
right? So this is where you can be cashed up and throwing money into your Kiwisaver to try to have that cash to be able to invest.
Well, one of the other great things about Kiwisaver is there's dollar cost averaging.
Absolutely.
So the concept there is that rather than if you had a set amount of money now, rather than invest it all into shares at the moment, it's to actually drip feed it. And the great thing about Kiwisaver is because you usually contribute in every pay cycle, so every fortnight or every month, each fortnight or month, your money is buying more shares. So that way you don't have to worry about trying to time the markets, because it's proven that it's a really safe way to invest,
Right.
because you won't really know, except in hindsight,
Yes.
whether you're buying shares at a high value or a low value. So leave it to the experts. They'll be buying shares depending on what the expert opinion
Yes.
considers, and making sure your Kiwisaver
Right.
performs well.
So it's an investment scheme for retirement, right?
Correct.
You and the government and your employer are putting money into this thing, and it gets invested for you. Now, Generate is one of many providers out there. I will say that I'm personally not a fan of the banks because this is not their core business.
Correct.
The risk is, if it's not their core business and their Kiwisaver funds don't do well, the attitude could be, "Meh, you know, we make money off mortgages," or whatever it is.
Correct.
Right? But with you guys at Generate, all my clients I put with Generate, for me a big deal is that this is all you do.
Yeah.
Right? How much money do you have in management now?
Well, we've now got over 1 billion funds. So at the
Sorry,
moment,
did you say billion?
Correct.
One with a B.
correct.
That
yeah.
will put you right at the top there, wouldn't it, in terms of
So,
providers?
well, it actually means we've got about 2% of market share, but we're
Right.
actually 10th largest on member size.
Right.
So we're doing very well. And one of the reasons we do so well is we use advisors. So we believe the best thing for customers is to actually get advice
Yes.
on Kiwisaver, on how it works and how to select an appropriate fund for them.
Right.
And the other good thing about us is customer service. We're not doing bank accounts, mortgages, checks, loans. All we do is Kiwisaver. So currently we've got the highest customer service rating on Sorted, which is like the New Zealand's government savings website.
Yes.
And that's 98% customer service rating that we're very proud of.
Number one.
Correct.
But you're also in the top echelons there in terms of performance.
Correct,
Right.
yep. So there's a very good report that comes out quarterly called Morningstar. So we've just had a calendar year passed, and for the calendar year 2018, our funds were ranked first, and third in their respective categories. They're also ranked top 3 for the 5-year performance. So we're just coming up to our 6th birthday, and so we have the ability to show we represent excellent value for money because we've got good short-term performance and good long-term performance.
And now you've hinted at something there. First, and third in different categories. So what you're saying is that you're putting money into Kiwisaver, but then you as the person who's investing have a choice how you want that money invested, conservatively or aggressively or maybe somewhere in the middle.
Correct,
Right.
and a lot of it depends on your time frame. So is your retirement 20, 30 years away? If so, you should be looking at growth funds.
Yes.
If you're close to needing the money, a conservative fund is more appropriate. You don't get the gains that you get from growth funds.
Sure.
However, you do reduce the volatility. Now, the interesting thing, there's a really good benefit with Kiwisaver, which is the ability to use it towards your first home. So that's a great example of when we say, hey, if you're thinking about buying a house shortly and using your Kiwisaver for that, we recommend a conservative fund so the money's there when you need it.
Right.
So to use your money for a first home, you need to be in Kiwisaver for 3 years.
Yes.
And then the rules are really clear. You can take out all the money that's in there apart from $1,000.
Oh, wonderful. So you just leave $1,000 in there, you pocket the rest, go out and put a deposit down on your first home. Yeah, so now you need to be a permanent resident at least before you qualify to enroll.
Correct, yes. So you need to be a resident and then you can join Kiwisaver.
Right.
Some people get automatically enrolled by mistake.
Yes, through the employers usually, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So if that's the case, we recommend letting the IRD know because they'll just shut it down and return the monies.
Right.
And then when you are eligible, you're more than happy to get your Kiwisaver
Well, that
owned.
makes sense to me. You don't want to try to access the money later on, and the government thinks, "Why are you in this? You're not supposed to be." You know, so yeah, it's best practice then to let the IRD know, give them a phone call, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So now a lot of people as well, I've found that very few people ever got advice about Kiwisaver before they signed up to it. All right, so they're throwing money into something they know next to nothing about for a lot of people, and they join through their employer. Now, how does that work? Because then is the employer deciding who invests the money, or is it just left to chance?
So Kiwisaver is a fantastic retirement scheme, but it does have a couple of flaws. So one is that when you enrol and join Kiwisaver for the first time, if you don't put down on the form that you've got a preferred provider, and let's face it, most of us wouldn't unless we've had a chat to an advisor and got pointed in the right direction, the IRD will get your application and they'll pick one of 9 default providers at random. So you can easily just be enrolled into a Kiwisaver provider you've had no interaction with and don't know anything about.
So why would they do that? Are they thinking that you will eventually get the advice and they're just parking you somewhere until you do?
Correct. They're called default funds and they're thought of as temporary parking places.
Right.
So the idea is that you don't stay in one, you get some advice or put some thought into Kiwisaver and go into a provider that you trust and you think will do a good job at investing your money, and also a provider you've made a choice to join.
Now, if you're in a Kiwisaver fund already or a provider and you like the sound of Generate, are you locked into your bank or to your other provider, or do you have the right to switch and choose?
Correct, yeah. You can it's really important because it's your retirement money that you're with a provider you trust will do a good job with your money. So it's very easy to change over. Joining a Kiwisaver fund is as simple as having an IRD number, some ID and a proof of address.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. I can keep talking to you a lot. I have more questions, but I'm sure we'll chat more in the future. So look, if anyone out there is looking for some Kiwisaver advice, I'll be looking at doing some webinars soon so I can be able to help a lot of people at the same time with some questions and drill down to the specifics of how Kiwisaver works. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, flick me an email. You can go to my website, pauldeclerc.co.nz, look for the Kiwisaver section, and we can have a chat in there as well. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you soon, and thanks for all of your time, guys. God bless, and we'll chat again soon.